There's a moment where technological leadership completely shifts the way we understand global innovation.
Mm.
It's not some slow, predictable drift. It's more of an abrupt, startling realization that the speed and focus of progress in one place have just fundamentally outpaced the story we've been telling ourselves.
That's a great way to put it.
And that is precisely the feeling we got looking at the stack of sources you shared with us for this deep dive. Our subject today isn't one breakthrough, it's actually 4 huge synchronized advancements.
Right.
We're talking everything from the chemical engineering inside an EV battery, all the way to the physics of nuclear fusion, the philosophy of AI, and the massive infrastructure that ties it all together.
And what's so compelling about this collection of data
Yeah.
is just the scope. We aren't talking about isolated lab experiments here. We're seeing this coordinated, massive technological momentum.
Yeah.
So our mission is to unpack these developments, understand the philosophies driving them, and then see how they connect to paint this much larger picture of technological dominance.
And it's all deeply interconnected.
Oh, completely. The sources make that crystal clear. AI demands enormous amounts of energy, and that energy needs unprecedented infrastructure to even deliver it efficiently.
Absolutely. So we have to start where the rubber meets the rug, literally. Let's talk about electric vehicles.
Okay.
Because for the average person thinking about buying an EV, there's one hurdle that always dominates the conversation. It's psychological, really. It's range anxiety.
That's the core problem, isn't it?
Mhm.
The limited range and the time you have to spend charging, those are the big mental barriers stopping global EV adoption.
For sure.
You can have a car with amazing acceleration and a giant screen, but if you have to stop every, 300 or 400 miles for an hour,
Right.
it just fundamentally changes the convenience compared to 5 minutes at a gas pump.
And so the research effort for decades has been focused on really just 2 things.
Hmm?
Maximizing the chemical energy density, basically, packing more lithium into a smaller space, or developing these ultra-fast charging systems.
Precisely. And this is where the sources point to a truly radical innovation that sort of changes the whole game. We're talking about the introduction of a self-healing EV battery developed by Chinese scientists.
Self-heal.
And if this technology really lives up to the promises detailed in our sources, it fundamentally redefines battery science.
Okay, let's get into the mechanics, because this is where the deep dive really begins. To understand this innovation, we first have to understand why batteries degrade.
Right.
When a normal lithium-ion battery cycles over and over, especially under stress, what is actually causing it to lose capacity over time?
Well, it's not just the chemistry slowly breaking down. A big part of it is physical wear and tear.
Okay.
You can imagine the internal parts of the battery, the cathode, the anode, the separator, as these complex kind of brittle structures. Over time, as ions are moving back and forth really fast during charging and discharging, tiny little micro cracks start to form between these structures.
I see.
Our sources use a great analogy. It's like road cracks forming after constant heavy traffic. And these little cracks, they reduce the contact area, which lowers efficiency, it increases internal resistance, and ultimately it just shortens the battery's lifespan.
So the battery isn't just running out of juice chemically, it's literally breaking down physically. It's like an infrastructure failure inside the battery itself.
That's the exact insight these researchers seized on.
Yeah.
And the solution they came up with is, well, it's completely novel. It's based on integrating a special type of iodine-based glue directly into the electrolyte system.
An iodine-based glue. Now that sounds like a very specific choice. Why iodine? Why not some other polymer?
Well, the genius of it, according to the sources, is in iodine's unique properties. Specifically, its ability to act as this dynamic healing agent.
Dynamic? How so?
Unlike a fixed polymer that just sits there, this iodine compound is designed to be mobile within the battery. It moves around. So when one of those microcracks forms, the iodine-based material automatically moves toward that damage. It's attracted by the localized stress or the chemical imbalance there, and it fills the gaps.
So it's repairing itself in motion while the battery is actually working. That sounds like something out of biology.
It is.
Yeah.
Like white blood cells moving to an injury.
Yeah.
It fills in those micro fissures and restores the electrical contact and the structural integrity between the parts.
So it's not a passive fix.
No, it's an active repair system. It's designed to adapt dynamically to degradation as it happens. It's constantly sealing itself and maintaining its efficiency, kind of like how skin heals an open cut.
That's an incredible claim from the source material that this is something no other scientist in the world has even attempted. Why do you think Western labs, with all their investment, kind of ignored this durability component?
I think the critique is that it was primarily a commercial focus. Western R&D has been so heavily channeled into achieving maximum initial range, getting the biggest possible number on the sales sheet.
The bragging rights number.
Exactly. That or chasing ultra-fast charge times to try to mimic the convenience of gasoline. Durability and long-term maintenance, those just weren't the headline features.
I see.
This Chinese innovation, it's a real philosophical shift. They're focusing on extending the efficient life cycle of the battery right alongside the energy density.
And when you combine that physical self-repair with optimized chemistry, the performance metrics they're reporting are just staggering. The source material claims this tech allows the battery to store 86% more power.
86%.
That's a huge jump.
The density gain alone is monumental, but it's the stability from the self-repair that makes that density actually viable over a long time.
Right.
And the result is the metric that should really catch your attention. The EVs using this can travel more than 1,000 kilometers.
That's well over 600 miles.
On a single charge.
That really does eliminate range anxiety for almost any driver. If you think about the specific example they provided, a round trip between Los Angeles and San Francisco.
That's nearly 800 miles total.
You could do it without stopping once to charge.
Not once.
That turns an EV from a convenient commuter car into a genuine long-haul travel option. The whole paradigm shifts.
And think about the economic implications for, say, fleet operators or commercial logistics. If your battery lifespan doubles or even triples because of this active self-maintenance, the total cost of ownership just plummets.
It's a move from disposable energy storage to a maintained long-term asset.
Exactly. This technology isn't just a marginal improvement. It fundamentally resets the goalposts for the entire automotive and energy sector.
It's an engineering philosophy that values longevity right alongside raw performance. And that brings us perfectly to our next breakthrough, which is also about longevity, massive scale, and rapid execution. But we're shifting gears from consumer tech to giant physical infrastructure.
A very different scale.
We're moving from a molecular-level engineering feat, that self-healing battery, to a national-scale one, the construction of the Huajiang Grand Canyon Bridge in Guizhou.
And this highlights a completely different kind of technological leadership. It's the ability to execute these massive projects quickly and incredibly cost-effectively.
When you look at the figures provided, the sheer scale of the ambition is it's hard to grasp, even for engineers.
It really is.
So let's talk scale and context. The bridge is the tallest ever built. It soars approximately 2,600 feet above the river.
And just to put 2,600 feet in perspective for you, that's taller than almost any skyscraper in the entire Western Hemisphere. It's absolutely immense.
And the sources point out a really important detail. China is essentially just competing against its own previous achievements here.
Right, the old record holder was also a Chinese bridge.
The Beipanjiang Bridge, built in the same province back in 2016, it shows this ongoing, deliberate internal mandate to just keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible in structural engineering.
But the height isn't the only shocking factor here. What really grabs your attention are the efficiency metrics.
The speed and the cost.
Exactly. For a world record holder, a unique custom-designed structure spanning a massive canyon, the construction time was only 3 years and 8 months.
From start to finish.
From start to finish.
And the price tag. The total cost was just $300 million.
It's an astonishingly low number. When you put that figure up against any comparable mega project in North America or Europe today, it just doesn't compute. A world record structure built from scratch for that price.
It immediately makes you ask questions about, standardization of materials, labor efficiency, the regulatory environment.
Centralized coordination. How do you manage that level of complexity, the supply chain's safety, on a project of this scale, at that speed, for that cost?
Yep.
It suggests a highly optimized system.
And the local impact is immediate. This wasn't just built to break a record.
No, not at all.
It instantly cuts the travel time between the two sides of the canyon from a painful 2 hours down to 2 minutes.
Imagine that.
That kind of transformation is profound for commerce, for logistics, and just for the daily lives of the people who live there.
And beyond the utility, the bridge is designed to be a powerful economic engine.
Right.
The design is deliberately multifunctional. It's meant to bolster the local economy by connecting major tourist spots and really serving as a destination in its own right. They've integrated leisure and tourism directly into what is essentially necessary infrastructure.
And the tourist features themselves are almost as much of an engineering statement as the bridge.
They're pretty wild.
The sources detail a high-speed glass elevator that takes visitors up to a coffee spot 2,600 feet above the river.
And if you're an adrenaline junkie, there's bungee jumping off the structure, incredible waterfall views, and a 1,900-foot-high glass walkway.
Looking straight down into the ravine.
Yeah, it's a deliberate strategy. They monetize their engineering prowess. It turns a piece of infrastructure into a global attraction, which ensures a quick return on investment that goes right back into the local economy.
And this brings us to the comparative context that the source material provides, which is where the real political and technological implications come in.
This is a stark comparison.
The sources contrast the construction of this record-breaking bridge with the ongoing repair of the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore.
Yeah, let's look at those figures closely because the comparison is really designed to highlight two very different systems of governance and capability.
So the Baltimore Bridge was struck and it collapsed. The repair, and this is a repair of an already existing structure, basically replacing a major section, is expected to take 4 years.
4 years. And cost $2 billion.
$2 billion.
So China builds the tallest bridge in history from the ground up in less time, 3 years and 8 months, and for a fraction of the cost at $300 million.
It's a shocking comparison.
It is. Why does a repair job in the U.S., with existing plans and supply lines, cost 7 times more and take just as long as building a world record-breaking structure from scratch in China?
It points to massive differences in regulatory hurdles, environmental assessments, labor costs.
Contracting speed, and maybe most importantly, political consensus and priority.
The source notes that in the West, it's been half a century since the United States has successfully tackled projects of this complexity and scale with this kind of efficiency.
It's led to a collective amnesia about what government is capable of.
And this comparison highlights a governmental capacity that prioritizes massive foundational physical assets and then just executes them quickly.
It speaks to long-term planning, where political cycles don't derail decades-long infrastructure needs. And that capability is foundational to scaling up other technologies, especially ones that demand constant connectivity and vast resources.
Which brings us perfectly to artificial intelligence.
Right.
So we shift now to AI, where the competition isn't just about who has the biggest model, but who has the smartest philosophy for deploying it.
And this also reveals a fundamental divide in how the East and the West are approaching technological development. The evidence for this shift is already visible in the global market.
We can start with a surprising anecdote that really forces you to reconsider which AI models are actually winning the adoption race.
And that's the story about Airbnb.
One of America's major tech giants, led by CEO Brian Chesky, chose to power its AI ecosystem not with models from Silicon Valley, but with Chinese technology.
That's right. Airbnb uses Alibaba's Quinn model as its primary AI tool. They openly selected it over high-profile competitors like ChatGPT. And this isn't just a curiosity. It's a strategic decision based on performance and cost.
So why the preference? Chesky specifically cited Quinn's speed and low cost. He said that while ChatGPT was impressive, its integration abilities just weren't ready for Airbnb's specific rapid deployment needs.
He called the Alibaba model very good and also fast and cheap. And this points to two crucial philosophical differences that are defining the global AI race.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first is the fundamental distinction between open source versus closed source models. There's a massive divergence in approach.
On the U.S. side, the main approach has been building these massive, proprietary, closed-source models. This has led to hundreds of billions in investment, which, according to our sources, has created this huge speculative bubble in the stock market. Some analysts are even estimating this AI bubble is 17 times larger than the dot-com bust.
It's a market driven by investor profitability, seeking high returns on closed, tightly controlled intellectual property. The goal is to maximize the moat around your technology.
And the Chinese approach.
In stark contrast, it's largely driven by companies like Alibaba, and it emphasizes open source models that are tailored for real-world applications and faster ecosystem adoption.
That is a foundational difference. The goal is ecosystem dominance and rapid integration, not immediate exclusive profit.
And Alibaba is leading this charge on a scale that's just unprecedented. They alone have released over 300 open-source AI models.
300.
And they support more than 170,000 derivative models created by third parties. This makes it by far the world's largest open-source AI ecosystem.
And this open approach, it aligns with a core strategic belief that's cited in our sources from Alibaba's co-founder,
Joe Tsai. He argued that the true winner in the AI race won't be determined by who builds the absolute strongest initial model, but by who can adopt AI faster across all levels of industry and society.
So it's about speed of adoption.
Exactly. And adoption speed is driven by open access, low cost, and customization. If a massive tech company like Airbnb is prioritizing fast, cheap adoption, it just validates this whole open source philosophy.
It's not about the initial horsepower, it's about deployment velocity.
Right. And that deployment velocity is tied directly into the second key difference in their AI philosophy,
Which is?
doing more with less, specifically dealing with hardware constraints.
This is a classic case of necessity being the mother of invention.
It is. Due to geopolitical constraints, Chinese firms generally don't have access to the most advanced, specialized chips, the A100s or H100s, that you need to match the raw performance of the most powerful Western models.
So if you can't get the most powerful single chip, how do you even compete on computational power?
You overcome it through sophisticated software efficiency and hardware clustering. The example of the DeepSeek model is crucial here. They achieved competitive results by famously using only around 2,000 specialized chips
2,000.
and just $6 million in raw computing power.
$6 million. That number is astounding. Our source highlights that this is only about a tenth of what a company like Meta spends on its AI infrastructure alone.
And Western models often require minimum deployments of 16,000 or more advanced chips.
So the ability to squeeze that level of performance out of a fraction of the hardware, it speaks to extraordinary innovation in the software layer.
It's all about how the data is processed, how models are trained, how resources are allocated. It's a profound technological achievement, and it's driven by scarcity.
And firms like Huawei have taken this approach even further. They're innovating by creating these complex AI clusters that use less advanced chips, but
But they rely on specialized interconnects and highly optimized software to make those chips communicate so effectively that collectively they can rival the performance of systems built on premium Western chips.
so they're turning a perceived hardware weakness into a software and efficiency strength.
They're pioneering new architectures that just maximize the output of the resources they have available.
And this focus on efficiency and speed is so pronounced that it's drawn attention from the very top of the semiconductor industry. We have a direct assessment from NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang.
And he understands the hardware physics better than almost anyone.
He acknowledged the immense capabilities of Chinese entrepreneurs, recognizing they graduate from some of the best STEM schools in the world. But his assessment of the technological gap is maybe the most provocative data point in all of our sources.
He directly challenged the common narrative that the U.S. has this multi-year lead.
He said the gap shouldn't be measured in years, but in nanoseconds.
And nanoseconds behind us. That implies parity or near parity when you measure it by the actual speed of computation.
He also specifically highlighted the competitive environment, describing Chinese entrepreneurs as formidable, innovative, hungry, fast-moving, under-regulated.
And that last part is key. He explicitly noted that some of the regulatory limits imposed on Western firms simply aren't present there, which allows them to accelerate faster in deployment and iteration.
So this combination efficiency born from necessity, an open source philosophy driving adoption, and a lighter regulatory touch, it creates an extremely potent competitive environment.
For sure.
But all this technological acceleration, the advanced EVs, the hyperspeed infrastructure, and especially these massive power-hungry AI models, it brings us to the final indispensable breakthrough.
Energy supply. We have to connect the dots.
Right.
These breakthroughs in batteries, bridges, and AI, they all demand one thing exponentially: energy. The enormous power requirements of AI data centers are set to create this catastrophic demand surge. And it's revealing a profound weakness in Western infrastructure, particularly in the U.S.
The U.S. electrical grid is nowhere close to being prepared for this. The data is stark. U.S. power output has remained virtually stagnant for over 20 years.
For 2 decades.
We're trying to fuel the most advanced technological revolution in history, AI, on an electrical infrastructure that has basically flatlined.
And you contrast that stagnation with China's strategy. They've seen almost uninterrupted energy growth year after year, specifically designed to meet these massive modernizing demands.
And the metric here is just staggering.
It is. China generated more electricity in 2024 than the U.S., the EU, and India combined.
Combined, that's a difference in scale and strategic commitment that you just can't ignore.
And one of the primary, most stable ways they've achieved this is by re-embracing and massively improving nuclear energy, a technology the West largely abandoned or neglected after incidents like 3 Mile Island.
So their nuclear reactor strategy is one of relentless, cost-effective expansion. Our sources compare the construction and operating metrics globally.
China's construction of new reactors is surging. But crucially, the cost per watt to operate these reactors is consistently the lowest in the world. They've just mastered standardization and rapid deployment.
This is where that execution capacity we saw with the bridge meets energy policy.
Exactly. In the U.S., many of our existing reactors are aging, and the operating costs are frequently double that of China's highly standardized modern fleet.
So our inefficient legacy infrastructure makes it hard to compete or scale quickly, even if we had the political will to do it.
And on top of that, they aren't just building traditional fission reactors more cheaply. They are leading the way with cutting-edge nuclear advancements that could fundamentally change the future energy landscape.
We're talking about next-generation reactor technology. Earlier this year, they successfully brought the world's first functioning thorium reactor online.
And this is a major technological milestone. We should probably explain for our listeners why thorium is such a game changer.
Please do.
Thorium is significantly more abundant in the Earth's crust than uranium-235. But crucially, thorium reactors produce far less long-lived, high-level nuclear waste compared to conventional uranium reactors.
So it solves one of the biggest long-term problems with nuclear.
It solves the waste disposal problem, and it makes the fuel source far more sustainable. It's safer, cleaner, and uses a more abundant fuel. It's a triple win for long-term energy planning.
And if that wasn't ambitious enough, we look at fusion.
The theoretical holy grail of clean energy. Chinese scientists are hitting incredible milestones there, achieving plasma temperatures 6 times hotter than the sun in their fusion development efforts.
So they're investing across the entire spectrum.
Right. Optimizing reliable fission with low-cost reactors, pioneering advanced fission with thorium, and chasing the distant groundbreaking potential of fusion.
Okay, so we have this immense energy demand coming from AI, coupled with a national strategy dedicated to meeting that demand through aggressive, low-cost deployment and innovation across all nuclear categories. What happens, then, when this immense energy demand hits a stagnant, fragile grid like the one in the U.S.?
The consequences are already being felt locally, and it underscores a systemic failure of strategic planning. The sources suggest that to meet future AI demand, the U.S. needs a massive, coordinated, nationwide energy project.
But our political leaders have been completely incapable of achieving that level of consensus or execution.
So the result is that big tech companies, desperate for power, are just bypassing national planning altogether. They're building massive data centers in small U.S. towns and effectively overtaking fragile local grids that were only designed for residential use.
And here's the failure of infrastructure governance.
Right. These sudden exponential increases in demand force local utility companies to rapidly upgrade their infrastructure and buy far more expensive emergency power.
And who pays for that?
The local residents. The sources show that big tech companies are passing the increased energy costs directly onto the local populations. Power bills in these towns have risen a staggering 267% over the past 5 years.
That's essentially a privatization of a public infrastructure cost.
It's driven by a national governance failure to plan for technological acceleration. And the contrast is just so stark. You have centralized planning focused on long-term national energy independence on one side,
versus a fragmented, reactive, market-driven deployment that socializes the costs onto the most vulnerable on the other.
Indeed. The Chinese government has been preparing for this moment for decades, focusing relentlessly on foundational energy development. The U.S. government, by contrast, has been mired in short-term political cycles and competing priorities. It just paints a very clear picture of different strategic priorities.
Okay, so let's synthesize these 4 interconnected areas that are defining this technological shift. We began with the self-healing battery, offering over 1,000 kilometers of range and solving a core consumer barrier through ingenious chemical engineering.
Then we moved to hyperspeed execution on physical assets. That $300 million bridge, built from scratch faster and cheaper than a comparable repair job, demonstrating unparalleled state capacity for infrastructure.
Then we examined the AI philosophy divide. Efficient, open-source models doing more with less hardware, prioritizing adoption speed over closed, speculative investment.
And that includes the hardware ingenuity that lets them perform computationally with just a fraction of the chips.
And finally, The aggressive, low-cost nuclear energy buildout, including the world's first thorium reactor and fusion breakthroughs, specifically designed and implemented to meet the exploding energy demands of that technological ambition.
The overriding theme drawn from all these sources is technological acceleration and integration. It's clear that China isn't just catching up to the West. They are speeding past by focusing on synchronous innovation, really challenging the established narrative of tech leadership in the 21st century.
And this leads us back to the central concept of strategic vision. The focus isn't on single isolated inventions, it's on the perfect synchronization.
Right. It's on how infrastructure, energy supply, and technology philosophy are all aligned and executed to meet future demands, like the exponentially growing need from AI data centers and EV fleets.
So ask yourself this powerful question, which underlies all these strategic differences. Is a governmental focus on long-term infrastructure investment, preparing for decades of guaranteed energy growth and building physical assets quickly and cheaply? Is that a more effective model for future technological dominance than a system that's primarily driven by short-term, speculative, closed-source market forces?
That foundational difference in execution and planning, highlighted throughout these sources, may ultimately determine the trajectory of the next half-century of global innovation.